You're listening to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast. So if you don't like us talking, what you listening for?
Hello and welcome to the second podcast from the No One Likes Us Talking team. My name is Joe Amphlett and I'm joined on today's show by Ted, Graeme, and you'll be pleased to know there's no George. It's Eamonn in the hot seat. Eamonn, how are you? Nice to see you.
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Joe.
Lovely to see you. With Millwall winning their last 5 away games and going 10 championship matches unbeaten. Yeah, you heard me right. 5 away games in a row. And
you say that again, John?
Yeah, I will do, Ted. That's probably for the best. 5 away games. We've won them in a row. That's amazing. And 10 championship matches unbeaten. Well, we'll take on all comers. We're 6 points off the playoff positions. Some are talking about us reaching the top 6 by the end of the season. Is it possible? We'll discuss that very shortly. We've had a great win against Hull. We've got a cracking home game to look forward to against Brentford. And the excitement is certainly mounting in this studio. Graeme is almost wetting himself.
I did it the other week, but I'm controlling myself.
I know you did, and it stunk the studio out. And I had to pay for the cleaning. We've got a great show for you today. Alex Rae is coming up. Also, our second guest, we'll speak to Jamie Pearce. Jamie's a Millwall fan who last week ran the half race, the big half race in a West Ham shirt to raise money for poor little Isla Caton. She's got very rare cancer. It's a lovely story. Jamie joins us. He's already raised about 500 quid to send towards Isla's bill, as she's got to go to the US for treatment. So a great story there. But boys, let's start the podcast by looking back at the last month since we've been on and the incredible away form that we've got. Some people will be saying soon, if only we had as good a home form as we did away, because we are absolutely phenomenal. Since that win against Leeds, there's no stopping us, boys.
No, we've actually sort of gone to places like Birmingham and made them look stupid up there, didn't we? Really, and as we move on, we've got some cracking games coming up as well, haven't we? So,
well, it's just amazing, Joe, that since the last show that we done, you know, we was all really talking about making sure we can stay in this division and, you know, keeping ourselves out of relegation spots, and here we are a month later, and I think we're all pretty confident we're safe now, and it's a case of can we break into the playoffs, which is really ridiculous if you look at us and where we started from this season. You think if we'd won 1 or 2 games in September, I think it was our really bad month, then maybe, you know, only 2 games and we would have been in the playoffs. But the form's unbelievable. 5 away wins on a spin. I think the record for Millwall 6, and we got Barnsley to equal that record. How nice would that be?
Our bogey team.
Our bogey team, exactly.
Well, if you look at it, the ball's coming off all angles now. I mean, I don't know what Ben Marshall turned in the ball against Burton. I don't know what part of the body that came off. And what was it? Somebody, I think it was Cooper's shoulder the other night, gave us the win. A goal against Hull. So it's coming off. The ball is running for us. The confidence is high, Joe, and I just can't wait, mate. I'm getting excited here.
And even the goal line technology against Sunderland. Well,
yes,
yeah. How bad was that?
Boys, we had a caller recently on the station I work for, TalkSport, a Millwall fan, which is a rare thing that we get a Millwall fan on. But he was saying, I don't want us to go up. I just, the Championship's the perfect level for us. He said he'd rather see West Ham and Palace come down. But you've got to say, wouldn't it be nice just to even have one season, like a Huddersfield season in the Premier League, even if you're losing games, just to say you've been up there and do it,
Right, it's just the joy of going to all the Premier League sides, isn't it, Joe, at the end of the day, and having them come to the den. I'm not so sure, though, if we was to get into the Premier League, let's face it, we all know we're the best underdogs around. If we're the underdogs in any sort of match, it's when we raise our game. Look at the Premier sides that came down in the Cup last year, 3 of them, and we beat them. One of them was actually the champions of England, So,
yeah, well,
listen, let's get there first. But what I must admit, and backing that caller up, what a wonderful division it would be if West Ham and Palace came down, and we'd bring Charlton up just to make sure we got 6 points at least. There we go.
I'll tell you what, you've got to look at all these managers across the country don't like coming down to Millwall. Now listen, Chris Coleman, he's an international manager. He's saying with Sunderland.
Not anymore, he ain't.
Yeah, not anymore. And he might not be the Sunderland manager more.
No.
But the thing about it is, he said to his team, well, it's a terrible place to come down here. You've got to be strong. You've got to be mentally strong. And we're winning after battle now. These teams are coming down. We don't like it down there. I mean, so yeah, we got that in our favour. We've got to exploit that type of thing. Forget about it. Let's see where we can get with this team. With a little bit of addition, maybe we'll be okay.
Because Graeme, you're usually a miserable old grump.
No,
so,
we haven't got Graeme in the studio today.
Let's ask. Obviously, Eamonn, we'll bring you in a sec. But
that's very kind.
No problem. But Ted and Graeme, obviously, I've worked with for many years. Ted's the ultimate optimist, whereas Graeme is a miserable old man. Now, Graeme, do you think that Millwall can actually make the playoffs?
I think that Millwall, it's going to be a hard job. It's going to be a hard job to make the playoffs. But I can tell you one thing, Joe, and I'm very sure about this. Nobody in those playoffs will want to play us because they know that we can overturn. We're a very hard-working side, and we can start overturning their multi-million-pound stars. They won't like coming down to us.
Ted, now you're the ultimate optimist.
The ultimate optimist. I don't think we're going to make the playoffs, Joe, if I'm honest.
What's he saying that for?
What's going on? Is this a parallel universe or something that we've just stumbled upon?
Please don't say I've swapped with Graeme. I've got to say.
No, they swapped
look, it's a tall ask. It's been a tall ask. You've got to remember, we're talking about keeping our side in this division. That's what we was talking about from the start of the season. I for one, certainly said if we finish fourth from bottom, I'll be more than happy.
What a negative person.
But listen, we all knew it was a battle, but this side are surpassing herself at the moment, and let's hope it continues. I mean, the next two games are really important. Brentford at home and Barnsley away. If we can get to what is actually the international break, which would be a 2-week break for most of the boys to a certain extent, and we're still in amongst it like 4, 5, 6 points behind, then you're going into Easter. And anything can happen at Easter. We all know that that's when a lot of decisions are made of who's going in and who's going out. But my only concern is that to get ourselves really in amongst it, we've got to really continue with the run that we're on. You know what I mean? It's got to be the same sort of thing. And that's a lot to ask. They've been fantastic over the last month. They've got us like 22 points away from relegation zone, which means we're safe, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're looking at the playoffs, and we are dreaming. There's no doubt about that. We are dreaming at the moment. But of course, with the last month and the way that they've played, we go into every game actually believing we got every chance of winning. And I hopefully Neil keeps them going all the way to the end of the season, and let's see where that takes us.
I've got to take my old friend to task here, because if I just won at Hull and he comes back and he comes in the dressing room and says, the manager says to me, well, I don't think we can keep it running, boys, and all that type of lark. I mean, if you looked at Neil Harris after the Hull game, he's positively ecstatic. He says, yes, we're going to do it. Yes, we're going to get the 60-point mark. Yes, we can push on with this side. So I think
Harris is saying the right things, because you sometimes the managers are very cautious and they'll come out and say, no, we're taking it game by game, we're not going to get too excited. Harris has come out and said, I'm not going to let my players let up on this. They're not going to drift off and go on their summer holidays too early here. And Harris is the ultimate professional, and he will keep them, I'm sure, focused on the job.
You're 100% right, Joe, and that's exactly what I would be saying if I was in the changing room.
Oh, you didn't say that just now.
If I was in the changing room and I was Millwall's manager and my team was playing the way that this lot have been playing, I'll be boosting them up as much as I possibly can, saying keep going for it. But I'm saying, or talking from a fan's point of view, that do I believe that Millwall are going to win the next 5 away games? No, I don't, unfortunately. But then I didn't believe that he was going to win that 5. So, but what I'm saying, Neil Harris, as Joe's pointed out, is quite right. He's saying all the right things, and he's got a side there believing that they can win every game that they're in. If it happens, I'll for one to be over the moon.
I think you only got to look back at the game against Sunderland. We didn't have a good first half there, and without a doubt, they went back in at half time, and the miracle of Harris obviously got them fired up, along with, I would imagine, a few of the great leaders that we got in that side. And actually, we could have overturned Sunderland in that second half.
Well, that's a good point, Eamonn, for the reason that I think that's a sort of game not too long ago we would have lost.
That's right.
But we at least got a point out of it, and perhaps on the actual game we should have won it, really. But, I mean, you're right, they came out second half and they was like a different side, and unfortunately just couldn't get that second goal.
The only problem is when you're playing well and you're getting a bit more coverage. Although actually, this is something I must take to task with the newspapers. this morning. No, hardly any coverage. I mean, I'd subscribe to the Times, and they featured games about Villa and in the Villa Sunderland game and Cardiff and other games. I think the Millwall story, 5 games away on a trot, it's a brilliant story, and no one, the Mail, the Mirror, no one was covering it this morning. It winds me up.
Well, it was in the Irish Examiner, though.
Oh, right.
Yeah. The other thing
I
is
haven't read that one yet.
The other thing is the Standard doesn't cover them very well either.
No,
That's why we used to do Lions Live. That's why we're doing this stuff now,
Yeah.
to put out the message out there.
Well, the Standard's gone right downhill.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Years.
Of course, yes.
And the sport used to be good in the Standard. But, I contradicted myself slightly, but because we're not getting the coverage we deserve. Are we worried at all that someone's going to see Neil Harris working a miracle on a small budget and think, God, this guy's a good manager? We could have him and take him somewhere higher.
As I always say, Joe, when you're playing well or doing well, then everybody looks at your players. They look at your manager.
Yeah.
And I'd rather they was looking at our players and manager than not. Because it shows that we are going and doing the right things. Listen, the bottom line is we are in a good position at the moment, a good place for ourselves. I for one, Joe, I'm not too bothered whether people talk about us. Let's just keep doing our thing, if you know what I mean. It's nice to be recognised, it is, and we should be recognised. I mean, Neil Harris, really and truthfully, if you look at what he's managed to achieve in the last couple of years, he should be after some sort of award for it, to be quite honest, because it's been nothing less than phenomenal, But people will look at it, and Sheffield United came up with us, and they're still up above us at the moment, and that. But we know and we've seen our team develop from the first part of the season where we knew we was battling and getting through it. All of a sudden, for whatever reason, the pennies dropped with them to a certain extent, and we've clicked, and we've gone on to such a good run. It's just one of the best runs that I've seen a Millwall team go on for a long while.
I think we've played better football this season than we did last, and that was a promotion-winning season.
I agree.
I didn't always enjoy our football last season. We played in my view, at home as well, very negative at times. It was obviously, I can't criticise it too much because it got us success and promotion. But this season, I think even from the very start, we set out and played some good football. And there's not been many performances where I've thought, they were terrible today.
And we're attracting quality players like Ben Marshall, who I think's, I would love him to sign for us. I don't know how difficult that might be or whatever, but looking at him the other night with him on one side and Jed Wallace on the other, who didn't have his best game against Sunderland, but we all know what Jed's about. It's a perfect pairing of wingers. Both of them really exceptional in their own way. And they seem to be a solid outfit at the moment.
Do you know what upsets me when you? This is a strange thing to say, but when you're doing so well. You see if you agree with me on this one, boys. I miss some of the players from last season that got us up.
Yeah.
An example, I remember when. Do you remember Schofield?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was brilliant the season we went up with Kenny Jackett, and then when we got up to the Championship, you never saw him. He never got back into the team, and I'm seeing the same kind of things again with Ben Thompson, who was brilliant last season, and Shane Ferguson as well. They're not getting the game time. I don't know. It's a strange one because you have to step up. You step up a league, but I miss their involvement somewhat. Do you know what I mean?
I think that Neil Harris, just to take up his management situation, I think that he is probably regarded as Millwall being a special case, a special manager down there. So, would it be good for the more open market? I don't know. He'd have to overcome that, but. What he doesn't seem to like to introduce youngsters into the Championship. He thinks it's a man's game up there. I mean, the guy or the bloke who's really come on is Marlon Romeo. I think he's a fantastic football player. And so I think it's harder for the youngsters when you're at this Championship level to break in, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, but you're talking a step up in quality, Joe. The thing with Millwall is and Neil Harris, I hear him say it a lot, we're developing, we're going in the right direction. Wherever we finish this year, what you've got to look at is next year we hope to be above it. Now there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to finish above where a lot of us hoped we would be, and we will be in quite a comfortable position in the Championship. I'm convinced of that already. In which case, next year we've got to somehow better ourselves so that we are pushing for the playoffs from the word go. Like,
very
if we are in the Championship, of course.
Very interesting point, that, because I think now we're getting to the stage where we need a little bit more significant investment, and whether it will happen over the summer will be interesting, because I think we've got to bring a couple of players over £1 million into that side.
Well, if we don't, Graeme, if we don't do that, and which we never have done, have we? There's always been times where Millwall have been close to, in my lifetime, of going down there, getting in playoffs in the Championship and getting close to getting up to the Premier League. But then the following seasons, there's kind of been no investment and a drop-off, and then the eventual relegation back down to League One, and people say, we are just a yo-yo club that will go down to
this
League
is
One.
where Joe, this is where I disagree with Graeme, because it doesn't have to be £1 million. If you look at what we done in the summer when we brought James Meredith in, James Meredith came in for nothing on a free transfer, and he's been absolutely outstanding
true
for
bit
us.
Of business, absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be £1 million. Everybody naturally assumes when you go up, you've got to get better players in, which is true, but you can find these better players. What we need is another recruitment in the summer, wherever we are, of a similar amount of players that we had this year.
It's easier said than done. If you've got a bit of money, if you've got a bit of money, you're going to get better players in anyway.
But traditionally, Joe, when we've spent money, big money on players, the players have been no good to us.
Uwe Fuchs was a great player.
On his backside.
Uwe
Fuchs, I think they misspelt his name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there was a few.
See, the other thing is, Ted, that we haven't taken into account, every time we move for a player these days, Chris Wilder. We might want him. I mean, in the end, he won the battle for Leonard. He went on and on and on, and he won that.
Yep.
And he's going back and looking at other our targets. So there's a massive amount of competition to pull out a plum like Meredith. Again, you've got to say our recruitment team did very well there. Will we be able to do it? I think, you've got to bring in some championship-bedded players, which are going to cost you money.
I think that recruitment team have done exceptionally well, and Neil Harris pointed that out recently. And it wouldn't surprise me at all, the way they've been performing, that they've got their targets already.
I'm sure they have.
And I'm sure, in my own art of arts, it ain't going to be £1 million plus players that we're looking at.
No, it'd be players with the...
You've got to move fast, though, boys.
We have.
But it'd be players that, like in last summer, that want the challenge, want to prove themselves, want to show that they're better than where they've been playing. They're the sort of ones that perform well for Millwall. And look, anyway, let's just enjoy what's happening at the moment with the boys that we've got here, because who knows where we'll be.
Yeah, we look at Brentford quickly.
Yes.
We owe them, don't we? I mean, we owe them. I mean, we scored a legitimate goal up there. The referee pulled it back for a penalty, which Lee Gregory missed.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a lot between these sides, and I think it's a London
There's one
derby.
point between them.
Yeah,
You're
Very
right.
good,
There
very
is a lot.
good.
well, it's
Joe.
not a lot. And it's a London derby. Let's get the den rocking again, and I think we can beat this lot.
I've not forgiven them. I went to Brentford when we were 2-0 up, and Harris had just taken over after Holloway, and we were trying to stay in the division, and we were 2-0 up, and I was thinking, it's on here, we can escape this. And they 2 late goals at Brentford, and it was heart
Well, they're a funny...
heart crushing.
Oh, yeah. They're a funny side, though, Brentford. On their day, they can be exceptional, and on other days, they can be pretty poor. That's why they're more often than not, they're better than they're bad. Let's get that right. But
Brentford are a good example of a club that we would like to emulate in a way.
In certain ways, yeah.
When they came up to the Championship, it was the first time they'd been at that level, wasn't it? And they've done brilliantly well to stay there.
Yeah. But I think Graeme said it, and he's right. We actually owe these one. I think it's about time that we turned Brentford over. We've come close a couple of times, I think, recently, and but it's a big game, Joe. Like I say, if we can get 4 points out the next 2 games, which is Barnsley and Brentford, I'll be more than happy, because that will certainly keep us in touch with where the playoffs are going to go. Then we've got a fortnight to recover before we get on with the Easter weekend, which and if we are in amongst it, there's no reason why we can't have a go at it.
If you're listening to this podcast after we've played Brentford and we've lost 4-0, then apologies, of course. We hope
what do
that
we
hasn't
know?
happened, but we hope you still enjoy the rest of the podcast. Anyway,
What we've got to say is congratulations for Millwall for getting safe this season. I think that's
absolutely. We think we can all celebrate that. They've overachieved already. I think at the start of the season we would have accepted, if it had gone to the last game and we'd stayed up then, we would have accepted that. But to be safe in early March And you can safely say we're safe now. If we didn't win another game, I'm sure we'd be fine.
I'm sure I said at the beginning of the season that I think we should be going for the playoffs, Joe. You know how optimistic I am. I'm sure I said that.
We weren't doing a show then, so I'm not sure if I can remember that, Ted. But listen, thanks for tuning in. This is the No One Likes Us Talking podcast. It's our second show, and we will be speaking to Alex Rae very shortly. Plus, we've got so much to come, including Grumpy Old Men, radio's best new feature, so don't you go anywhere.
Welcome to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast question number 2, sponsored by WePrintAnyGift.com. Before we deal with podcast question number 2, we must congratulate Dave Smith in winning our first competition with the answer Liam Trotter. As a prize, Dave received a copy of Millwall Miscellany by David Sullivan. A tantalising read, if ever there was one. There were many correct answers, probably more than we've ever received in a competition of this type before. So don't be downhearted, you sitting at home listening. Thanks for entering, and better luck this time. So, to be in with a chance of winning another copy of that book, Millwall Miscellany, which has a foreword written by our very own Neil Harris, could be the perfect gift for a loved one, or to keep yourself, you selfish Sanso. Just answer the following question. When we last faced Brentford at the Den, who was the Millwall player that scored the last and winning goal in our 3-2 defeat? Let me repeat it. When we last faced Brentford at the Den, who was the Millwall player that scored the last and winning goal in our 3-2 defeat? Please send your answer to nolutaLkin@gmail.com. nolutalking@gmail.com. I'll spell it out one more time for you. nolutaLkin@gmail.com. Also put NOLU podcast question in the subject of your email. The competition will close at 23:59 hours, or for those of you that are normal, 11:59 next Monday. The winner will be announced on our social media links at Facebook, Twitter and Tumblr. And we will also give the winner a shout out on the following No One Likes Us Talking show. Can you imagine your name on the podcast? Great! Once again, thanks to our sponsor, WePrintAnyGift.com. Check them out. Now go away.
It's an absolute pleasure now to welcome our first guest of today's show, of today's podcast. Not our first guest ever, though, because we had Tony Cascarino last time. For our second podcast, we've got one of my all-time favourite players. This man played 256 times for the Lions, scoring 71 goals, and then he moved to Sunderland. I've never forgiven him for it. But when I first went down the Den in the early 90s, this man was definitely one of my favourite players. And Rhino, of course, as well, because I love Rhino. But it's a pleasure to welcome Alex Rae to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast. Alex, thanks so much for joining us, mate.
No, listen, it's a pleasure.
You're a star, mate. Listen, let's start with your views on the current side, because another fantastic away win. Hull, that's 5 in a row. Alex, are you in shock just as we are?
Listen, I think everyone thought if he could keep them in the division this year. Neil may well have thought differently, but it's an extremely unforgiving division where, you know, if you get on a bad run, you can easily get dragged down. But to consider where they are at the moment, I think they're 6 points off the playoffs. And I've got Brentford at the weekend. That gives them plenty of optimism, and they will go into this game thinking that they can win this, which obviously gives them a really good opportunity to try and squeeze in that playoff spot.
Alex, I want to ask you, and it encompasses both your teams, Sunderland and Millwall.
Yeah.
What's confidence? How does confidence affect a professional football player? Because there are a lot of big names in the Sunderland side.
Yeah.
They didn't look good. What's the mindset? How do you start lacking confidence? What happens?
Oh, listen, I think it's defeats. Pure and simple. When you're on a really bad run, or even a bad run of form, you know, you could be playing in a decent team, but you know you're getting taken off and things that starts affecting your confidence. And it really is a massive part of the game, and I didn't realise this until I was, 29. I started doing some work with some psychologists, and I have to say it was the best thing I ever did, because when I got a wee bit of freedom, a bit of peace of mind, and started to kind of start behaving in terms of, getting sent off and things, you can focus all your energy on positive. And just to give you a short insight, more or less from my time as a young teenager, up until I was about 28 or 29, I would be getting into games thinking, right, okay, I remember maybe as an example, Lee Bowyer, at Charlton for, maybe I smashed me about a year or two before, and I carried it about with until I got him back. So you're getting into games thinking I'm going to smash players and things, and that's a kind of negative. Whereas when I started working with a psychologist, I kind of get rid of all that stuff and just focused on the good stuff in terms of work hard, because your abilities never let you down. And from that point, I really hit a level which I never done prior to that, 28 years prior to that. So confidence is everything, but it's into how you approach the game and have belief. But once it starts spreading throughout a team, it can become cancerous, and it's really, really difficult, regardless of the manager, to try and overturn that.
I think, Alex, in this day and age, there's a lot more about the sociological side of things in how you're thinking and whatever. Yeah. And I think Millwall's a perfect example of that, because we all know and look at this side, and we sat here last month thinking to ourselves, we're still too close to relegation for our own good, if you know what I mean, and are we going to survive? Then all of a sudden, as they've got this togetherness, which is what it's all about at Millwall, they're now we're looking, we may have a chance at the playoffs. It's amazing what if you get everybody pulling together in the right way, with the right frame of mind, everybody trying to do the right thing, how a team comes together.
Do you know the interesting thing about this? I think Neil Harris, when he first came into the job, says he wanted to try and bring the Millwall kind of ethos back to the playing side. They thought it had been lost. And if you go back to Neil's days, when he was obviously successful as well, and then go back to my time, it was very much like that. I was thinking about going back to 1990. I was just a young lad, pitching up at the Den, and I was telling a story, and obviously I can't say that there was some language used upon it, but when I pitched up at the old Den, I thought, my God, I need to go back to Scotland. This is an absolute dive. and I was serious. I was looking at this place, and I was got the Knackers Yard, and this stadium's just pitched up in the middle of nowhere.
We always thought it looked so welcoming, Alex.
Well, listen, I'm sure you did welcome him all with open arms, but I had an intimidation, and I think that kind of worked in Millwall's favour, and no one actually liked going down to the road. And it was interesting because they had the fence around the stadium at that point as well, and you get middle-aged guys poking you in the ribs when you're taking a throw and going, liven up, your little so-and-so, and you're like, oh, welcome to the real world. So, and it's, you talk about confidence and things. It's about how you actually cope with that kind of situation, because it's very easy to crumble, when you've made a few bad passes. That the Millwall fans can be a bit unforgiving, like most fans, and they soon let you know. And Big Mick Harford is a good pal of mine, and he said to me, "How long were you at Millwall?" And he said 6 years. He went, "You must have been a good player, son, because they're a bit lively down there."
Alex, I always imagined that you would become one day a Millwall manager. Did you ever? I think you were the perfect mould to become a Millwall manager. Did you ever think that would happen yourself? Is that something you wanted to happen?
Listen, when I was a Dundee manager, I did a really good stint. We were chasing the title. We ultimately finished second that season, but I got a phone call from I think it was Andy Ambler, the chief executive at Millwall, and he said to me, "Listen, we've been following your progress and we'd like you to come down for an interview," and that was at the same time as Kenny Jackett. So wow. I went down and met John for 3 or 4 hours. It was interesting. We spoke maybe a third of the time about football, your philosophy, what Millwall meant to me in terms of playing and how I saw things going forward and whatnot. But he actually went into a lot of depth about family and things, and I loved it. Actually, I really enjoyed his company first and foremost, and having saw what John does for the club, I have to say, and this is only from a distance, so I really don't know the inside stuff, but it appears to me that he puts his money where his mouth is. He helps finance the shortfall and things, and that's the kind of chairman you want for a football club, because there's a wee bit of debate about certain foreign owners, but I have to say, I think John's been brilliant. He's fought the cause as well to try and keep, from Lewisham stealing the part of land as well, so he's been very much at the front line financially and obviously support them to try and make sure they kind of keep away from suitors trying to take that part of that ground. So I just think the guy's brilliant for the club, and I'm hoping, I would absolutely love Millwall to go up through the playoffs, because honestly, can you imagine the Premiership with the Millwall fans? It would be
I don't think the Premiership can imagine it.
I missed out almost 30 years ago when guys like Cass and Teddy and the likes of them, Hurlock and that, they were in the top flight. I would love to have been part of that, because I just think it would have been something to see, something to behold.
Yeah, I think it would. Certainly we saw Kaz actually this morning, and he was a little bit concerned about Millwall's form. He said because he felt that he might be forgotten if they get into the Premiership again. How do you feel about that then?
No, not at all. You can't forget that, can you?
No.
But the thing is, I think when you speak to guys like Cass and people that have been around about the football club, they speak about it really fondly. I know they get a lot of tough press at times, and sometimes it's justified. But when you're actually within the club, I was actually, there's a charity game, I think at the end of May, someone's possibly trying to get us involved in for, some of these terrorist attacks, and I'm trying to see if it's possible for me to get down to playing it. But I've been telling people, I've been doing some work for some companies, and I was telling the guys who were actually organising that how good a club Millwall was, and they were all shocked. They don't understand the actual good work that goes into the community and all that as well, and the conveyor belt of kids that have come through the club over the years as well. So they do some brilliant work, and it's just about trying to promote that, I think.
You may be a charity game, Alex, but if you put a pass wrong, you're still going to get stick. You know that.
Listen,
you're still down at Millwall,
Rangers, when you played for Rangers in front of 50,000, it's absolute dog's abuse.
Yeah. Particularly if you're playing Celtic.
Don't listen. It's this weekend, mate. I've already got my briefing all that. I'm right on front and certain. I might even get arrested. I might not make it.
I want to ask you about yourself, Alex, because you say a lot of deep thoughts now. You had a lot of deep thinking and that. Do you think you would have been a better player if you knew what you knew now when you were down at places like Millwall?
Listen, see if I had the head, once I kind of get myself squared up when I was about 28 or 29, once I got into that mindset, I was by far, and I mean by far, a better player. I got on top of all the aggressive side of things. And when I say aggression, the aggression will always be there. Even now when I play five-a-sides, if somebody upsets me, they get volleyed. So that is very much part of your DNA, but it's about how you kind of control all that. And it's interesting because when I went to Sunderland in '96, I met Adrian Heath, who became our assistant manager, I think around about '98, round about that. And he was telling us after 1 year at Millwall, Howard Kendall, they were talking about maybe putting in a 900 grand bid for us, and I thought he was at it. I said, "All right, very good." And he says, "No, we were going to do it, but some of your off the field antics were getting back to us, and we thought differently." So that kind of stuff clearly had a bearing on what way my career had gone, and I think that was one of the reasons why I was 6 years at Millwall, because when you look back, even if you think about it now, if you were getting a midfielder that was scoring double figures in the Championship now, they'd be really well sought after. So all that behaviour and the mindset was very much holding me back, because there was baggage there. There's no two ways about it. So, but underneath it all, there was a very good footballer as well.
I had the privilege of listening to you last year in the executive lounge at Millwall, and you spoke with passion, and I think people were moved by what you had to say about your development in football. I don't expect you to go all the way through it, but you forged some tremendous friendships along the way, and I actually hold out to you for what you went through and how you conquered everything around that.
Oh, listen, do you know what I was actually thinking about? For some strange reason, because I was talking about Millwall in the last couple of days to people, I've been thinking back about the early days at Millwall, and I remember my first weekend. We were. I ended up sharing a flat with Malcolm Allen, of all people. I got offered to stay in the Blackheath Hospital in the Blackheath Hotel. And,
Hospital?
Yeah, well, listen, 6 weeks later I wound up, after 6 weeks with Malcolm, I wound up in Blackheath Hospital. But I was thinking back to them days where I was staying with Malcolm, and I stayed with him in Deptford High Street, of all places, for my first weekend in London. And we were travelling to Aberystwyth to do the pre-season training. And listen, for anyone that's ever done the sand dunes, it was absolutely lethal. You know, you're up and down these. It was almost like running up the side of a building and then back down. And this was forever. It was just non-stop running. And at the end of the first day, Bruce Rioch says we've got a 5-mile run to get the bus. And we had to wait until the last guy. And guys like Horney were drinking seawater and all that. It was madness. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I hope we don't have to do that 5-mile run every day after training. And this is an absolute gospel. The following day, because this is my second day at Millwall, and I'm trying to impress Bruce Rioch and Ian McNeil and all Harry, all the coaching staff. And I was about 5th or 6th in the 5-mile run. And I must have been maybe about half a mile before I get to the end line. I'm thinking, you're doing great, son, just keep digging in, dig in. And then as I'm getting closer to the finish line, I see wee Terry Hurlock, and he's just on his toes jogging about and all that, right? And he's, the long hair, and there's water dripping off his hair and all that. I'm thinking, how did he beat me? He could not have beat me, it's impossible. and the wee man had jumped on a bus. He jumped off a half mile before the finishing line, went wet his hair in the sea, and then sprinted over the line. You just couldn't make up the characters he had there.
No.
Because Bruce Rioch held up a training session for you, wasn't he, when you took Teddy to Glasgow?
We went up to see Rangers in Celtic Cup final in 1990, and it was a lost weekend, and we would get in at 4:30 in the Monday morning. We made a flight at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we fell asleep, and the both of us went to the airport, and in the days you couldn't book online or anything like that. It was just standbys you could get. And Big Teddy was standing there, and I was a bit worse for wear behind him. And he said to the lady, 2 flights to Heathrow, please, darling. And the lady says, we've only got one. And he went, name's Teddy Sheringham. He left me stranded. And anyway, I got there about maybe 1 o'clock. I think I pitched up to the training ground. And as I'm walking into the pavilion at Elton, I can see all the players sat there, and not one of them have got a bead of sweat on them. I think they all look quite fresh for a Monday morning session. As I walked in the door, Mick McCarthy jumped up and grabbed me by the neck. And he went, I was effing at the game yesterday, right? But I was still a bit worse for wear, and I said, but Mick, your team get your team get thingies yesterday. He threw me in the dressing room. And what Bruce Rioch had done was, he says, if he turns up at 7 o'clock tonight, he's sitting here until he turns up, he's let you down. And I have to say, for the remainder of that week's training, I was trying to stay clear of guys like Rhino and Mick. They were trying to volley me over if I came away. But you know, the thing is, it was a brilliant. And it's interesting because I was telling this story to these fellas again last week, and Andy Walker was telling the same story, because Mick McCarthy did it when he became a manager at one of the clubs as well. So he copied Bruce's, one of the boys who turned up late, and he just says to the guys, we're sitting here until he comes. So it was great, because it didn't, but let's tell you, it didn't happen again, that's for sure.
Looking at Neil Harris, he's got a very hard-working side there.
Yeah.
Do we need all these £1 million players? If you can get a unit together, that seems to be quite successful in the Championship.
Listen, I think it's, I think you need a combination of both. If you look at my old club, Wolves, they've splashed out money like you can't believe. But, I know some of the boys, some really good guys, like Shawnee Rollins, I had the MK Dons, the boy Hutchison. So you've got some really good players through there who are experienced. Wee guy up front, Gregory, does really well. He's lively, and then Big Morrison epitomise everything that Millwall stands for. Yeah. So, but the thing is that for me, it's always to do with what you have up top. If you have guys that can score goals, particularly at any level, it gives you a really good opportunity. And you can see that with Wolves, because I've really spent fortunes this year, and there will be clubs that spend fortune and don't. If you look at Wolves a couple of years ago, their wage bill was £24 million, and they get relegated out this division. So it's about getting the right players, and then obviously you were talking about the actual attitude of these players, which is paramount, because I did it with Paul Ince when we get sacked, and it's interesting. When you look at how well Neil's got the team going at the moment, and they're currently sat in 14th. And everybody's saying it's a fantastic job, and which it rightly is. And Paul Ince and I get sacked with Blackpool, we were in 14th. I'm just looking at the table now, and it just shows you, you know, and that was purely built on team spirit, because we were only paying guys $3,000 and $4,000 a week, and in the Championship that's literally bargain basement stuff.
Yeah. Well, Alex, I'm sure that I'll be speaking for most Millwall fans that if you were involved in some capacity in a coaching in the future down at Millwall, that people would welcome that. So let's hope that happens one day. I would love to see you back down the den, mate. Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
Nothing to do with Millwall. There's an interesting story this week that Charlie Nicholas, I'm talking about Scott McTominay now, who's chosen Scotland over England. And Charlie Nicholas came out and said, well, it's taking the identity away from the country by letting someone that was born in England play for Scotland. Have you got any problems with him choosing Scotland? I think it's a good thing.
Listen, I heard Charlie saying that, and listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion. However, if you look at Ireland, you know, guys like Andy Townsend and
Cascarino,
Ray Houghton. Ray Houghton's just more Scottish than me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the rules are there, then use what you have to use. Now, see where Scotland are as a country, we need to try and get as many good players on board as possible, because we've had 20 years we haven't qualified for a tournament. So, listen, see, and they do it all there. I think if you're actually in a country over 5 years now or so, you may well be able to represent that country, you know. If you're a kid, you know, and you weren't necessarily born there, you see it with guys who have, you know, asylum seekers now who have moved to Scotland. And you know they were never born here and things, and Scotland are trying to get these. A young kid called Dembele that England are trying to sniff about as well. And I've got to be honest with you, the kid's phenomenal. He's at Celtic. I think he's all about 14 or 15.
So if they can get you to a tournament, then you don't care.
Listen, see, the thing is, I don't see the point. If you were breaking rules, it would be a different proposition. But the rules are what they are, so why not utilise that? You know, if it's going to benefit your country. And as I said to you, we're on. And it's one of the things I'm going to try and write about in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to try and do a column about where Scotland are as a nation in terms of what we have at our disposal. People think we have. There will always be an argument because Iceland, who have a small population, Northern Ireland have got to a tournament for the first time, but you know that they're an exception to the rule. So, but in the main, we are going backwards as a country. We're not producing the players that we once did. You know, it used to be littered with Scottish players in the top division of England, and there's very few now.
I think to qualify, Alex, they should spend a night in Glasgow, and if they survive that, they can be called themselves Scottish, I think.
Listen, Glasgow's a great city, and that's what I remember telling it to Big Teddy when I brought him up. I says, listen, son, it's a European city of culture, 1990. The nightclubs are up to 6 in the morning. And I took him to one of the roughest nightclubs in Glasgow, man. He couldn't believe how bad things were.
Alex, it's a pleasure to speak to you, mate, and thank you for the memories. And I honestly mean it. When I first went down there, I still remember you playing for the Den at the Den. So it's great to speak to you, mate. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, guys. Anytime.
Thanks,
cheers, Alex.
Thanks, mate.
The legendary Alex Rae speaking to us on the No One Likes Us podcast, and I do have such fond memories of Alex. I really do.
He was brilliant, mate. He was. Funny enough, I don't know how he didn't get a Scottish cap. I don't think he did he?
No, I don't think he did. No,
I mean he was exceptional.
Could have asked him, Ted. He's just on the phone a second.
So, I didn't know. No, but there was a good side in them days, though, Scotland, and there was a lot of good Scottish players about, but. I'll put Alex up there with anyone. It's strange listening to him about later in life when he realised that basically what he was talking about controlled his temper. You know, because I always thought when he played for us, if you took that away from him, you took a bit out of him. But he seemed to think it improved him, like, you know. But he was a fantastic player, Joe, no doubt about it.
He thought positive in the end and overcome his challenges. I think that was the real issue.
His team, isn't it? But he was a great footballer.
Yeah, he certainly was. Anyway, don't you go anywhere. We'll be back literally in 10 seconds, probably about 10 minutes for us, but 10 seconds for you, and we'll be speaking to a Millwall man that has been wearing a West Ham shirt. What's that all about? You'll find out next.
Welcome to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast question number 2, sponsored by WePrintAnyGift.com. Before we deal with podcast question number 2, we must congratulate Dave Smith in winning our first competition with the answer Liam Trotter. As a prize, Dave received a copy of Millwall Miscellany by David Sullivan, a tantalising read if ever there was one. There were many correct answers, probably more than we've ever received in a competition of this type before. So don't be downhearted, you sitting at home listening. Thanks for entering and better luck this time. So to be in with a chance of winning another copy of that book, Millwall Miscellany, which has a foreword written by our very own Neil Harris, could be the perfect gift for a loved one, or to keep yourself, you selfish Sanso, just answer the following question. When we last faced Brentford at the Den, who was the Millwall player that scored the last and winning goal in our 3-2 defeat? Let me repeat it. When we last faced Brentford at the Den, who was the Millwall player that scored the last and winning goal in our 3-2 defeat? Please send your answer to noluttalkin@gmail.com. nolutalking@gmail.com. I'll spell it out one more time for you. noluttalkin@gmail.com. Also put NOLU podcast question in the subject of your email. The competition will close at 23:59 hours, or for those of you that are normal, 11:59 next Monday. The winner will be announced on our social media links at Facebook, Twitter and Tumblr. And we will also give the winner a shout out on the following No One Likes Us Talking show. Can you imagine your name on the podcast? Great! Once again, thanks to our sponsor, WePrintAnyGift.com. Check them out. Now go away.
This next guest that we have on the show has become a bit of a celebrity this week. He was in The Sun this morning. If you haven't seen it, check it out in the goals page. His name is Jamie Pearce, who last week ran a big half marathon in a West Ham shirt. Now, before you spit at him and judge him, let's hear him out and find out why he did that. Jamie, thanks for joining the No One Likes Us Talking podcast, mate. How you doing?
Not bad, thanks, mate.
Brilliant.
And before you try and spit at me, I've got a block 45 faithful behind me, so beware.
No worries, mate. No one's going to spit at you when you explain what you're doing this for. You're raising money for a 3-year-old little girl called Isla Caton. She's got a very rare cancer, hasn't she, called neuroblastoma. Tell us how you got involved in this, Jamie, and how it ended up that you had to wear a bloody West Ham shirt.
So I saw a few Millwall fans set up pages and causes to earn some money for her. You've got the likes of Nick Hart doing a sponsored walk with the West Ham fans. And then I just kind of thought, it'd be nice to raise some money for her as well. But I'm running about 5 races this year. I thought running and just saying I'm running isn't really going to raise much attention. And then I saw another Millwall fan who is going to do the same. Well, actually, he's going one step further. He's going to wear the full kit. But I thought, what a great idea. So I thought, let me get involved. And so I put it out that if I raise, for last week's race, if I raised 500 quid, I'd wear a West Ham shirt. But that target was probably a bit too low. It was achieved in 2.5 days.
That's brilliant, mate.
Yeah, I mean she's a very sick little girl, isn't she? Really, and you're raising. I think she's got to raise about 190,000 to get her over to the US for antibody treatment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So really, she what can she do at the moment? Is she totally unable to do things, or is she living some sort of life?
To be honest, I'm not entirely clued up on how she's getting on. I know that she was close to being able to go over, but then her cancer has relapsed, so she's needing further money and further treatment to be able to go over to the US now for the treatment. She had a tumour removed from her brain yesterday, which was successful.
Poor little girl.
Jamie, I've got to be honest, mate. I mean, when people say to me they want to run a marathon, I think they're mad anyway. Then they decide to run in things like rhinoceros suits and God knows what else. So I'm not so sure that a West Ham shirt on your back's not, that crazy, if you know what I mean. So fair play to you, though, mate. I can imagine what your thoughts were when you was pulling the shirt over your head. It must have taken a lot of tugging down.
Oh, don't. It was horrible. I mean, picking up the shirt, that's when it began to hit home a bit. I was like, what am I doing? But having Millwall on the back was really satisfying. I think running through East London on Sunday.
Here.
I'm going through and everyone's going up the hours, pointing to me back. No, I'm Millwall.
But you weren't very well before it, were you?
No, so I had a bit of a sickness bug on the Friday night. So I woke up Saturday morning just really dehydrated, no energy whatsoever. So got myself down to Millwall, had pie and mash, and just cracked on with the rest.
Well, pie and mash did it, didn't it, really?
That's what got you home, James, without a doubt.
And what you want to run the London Marathon, I understand, and you're asking anybody to give up a place for you, yeah?
Yeah, so if anyone's injured and unable to race now, I mean, I'd love to take their spot. I was unable to get one myself. I'm running Brighton the week before, but I want to be able to run London as well, because running the big half last week through London and through East London, through Barnsley, through Rotherhithe, I got so much attention. People knew about the cause I was running for, and the amount of awareness that was raised on the day. I think my tweet of me in the shirt had about 65,000 impressions, so quite a lot of reach on Twitter. Raised over 250 quid on the day alone as well. So the London Marathon being a bigger stage, it'll be an even better opportunity to raise more awareness and more money for it.
The only thing is, Jamie, you left half of London confused. If they see you coming towards them in a West Ham shirt and then running past and having Bill warn you back, I should imagine there's quite a few confused people out there.
Yeah, fair, man. But I seem to be a bit of a celebrity at the moment, so I think people know.
Well, brilliant, mate. Well done.
Doing a great stuff, really, for a poor little girl, and we only wish her all the best. And
yourself.
It don't matter who you support, and it's it doesn't. It just shows. It's just football at the end of the day, and it's a brilliant thing you're doing, Jay. Jay, thanks so much for joining us, mate. We really appreciate that.
Nice one, lads.
Thanks so much, mate.
All the best, Jamie.
All the best, Jay.
Cheers.
Welcome back. Stop rustling papers. You guys have got to get professional if you want to be successful. Come on. Welcome back to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast. My name's Joe Antflett. Joining the studio, of course, as ever, by Ted.
Hello there, Joe.
Hello, Ted. Graeme.
Oh, hello, Joe.
Okay.
There's a version of Graeme from the Devon or somewhere like that, wasn't it?
From a Carry On
All the
film.
Wurzels have walked in.
And Eamonn in for George this time. Hello, Eamonn.
Hello.
Eamonn, let's come to you here. You want to focus on the Lionesses. How are they doing at the moment?
They're doing ever so well. It's over a year now since they've been beaten.
Brilliant.
What a great improvement to things in the past. They went out by a single goal on the 18th of February to Arsenal, who I think they lost to, like something the previous in the previous cup game, something like 5-2. So you can see their progress. They've really got a buzzy gang of players there. I can remember us talking to Ashley Hinks actually in a previous life, and she was quite inspirational. So the team down there at the old Fisher arrangement are doing ever so well. They were on the pitch on Saturday. They came out and
they was also in Harry's Bar.
Were they?
Yeah. I won't tell you what they was doing in Harry's Bar.
Well, yeah.
No, there was a collection went round for them.
There was a collection. There was a collection that went round.
I told them to come round at 5 to 3 and they get as much money out of everyone as they can.
There's no one in there at 5 to 3.
Yeah, well.
Or as they was going out the door, John.
As they was going out. Very good, very good.
Well done to the Lionesses, and thanks to them for supporting this show as well. And Graeme, it's charity time.
Yeah, we've just heard from Jamie Pearce, and there's several other charities we've got to mention. Aisha Smith being one of them. She's doing a great job.
Good old Aisha.
Yeah, she's doing a great job. With help from the club, she's been praised for providing sleeping bags for veterans currently sleeping rough by the directors of UK Homes for Heroes, Pride and Passion. Yeah. She will be collecting any surplus sleeping bags at the Brentford game, and she will also collect blankets and quilts as well. So that's one charity initiative. Another charity initiative is...
Say that again?
Don't
make him
put your teeth back in.
I'm getting sprayed here.
Yeah, that's right. Millwall matchday receptionist Karen Powell is undertaking a charity walk to the 12 professional football grounds in London on the 23rd, 24th of March 2018 to walk over 50 miles, more than 2 marathons in 2 days. Yeah, will begin at Barnet, the Hive, on Friday morning, and will finish at the Den on Saturday evening. Sophie's twin sister Emma will also be taking part in the challenge. The walk is in loving memory of Karen's daughter, Sophie Powell. Sophie battled cancer for almost 2 years, and despite a very tough treatment regime, which included surgery, chemotherapy and radiotherapy, she sadly passed away in January 2017, aged 11. They want to try and provide a holiday home on the Isle of Wight for children suffering for battling for cancer. Karen and her family are grateful for any donation which will give other children like Sophie an enjoyable and memorable experience. For information and to donate, visit Virgin Money, www.virginmoneygiving.com/team/Sophie Powell.
Yeah, well done, Karen.
Yeah,
Well
very
done.
well.
Fantastic. Let me give that again. www.virginmoneygiving.com/team/Sophie Powell. It's a very worthy cause, and good luck to Karen on that one. So, boys, we did a little section on the show last time called Grumpy Old Men, because let's be honest about it. Maybe Ted's quite, young at heart, but Graeme is a miserable old man. George is the worst. George is even worse, but he's not here today. Eamonn, I don't know how miserable you are, but
Very miserable.
I'll just take over from George.
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah,
if you can.
okay.
A new feature called Grumpy Old Men, where something's upset you at a recent Millwall game. Maybe your burger was cold, or you waited too long for your Bovril. I don't know what it is. Maybe the toilet was overrun with urine and fag butts. Whatever it is, the boys will have their say. So who should we start with? Who wants to be grumpy first?
Well, Ted can do it because it's going to get worse after this. So there you go.
Well, Graeme, it's a more natural thing for you, but I shall have a go at it. Do you want me to go first?
Ted, please, the floor is yours.
The floor is mine, right. As we know, our boys are doing fantastically well, and the club have announced this week the new season ticket prices.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Now, we all pay what we have to pay to watch our beloved Lions and that, but my grump, I meant to say to start with, is I'm getting on, Joe. I might not look it. There's not a lot.
It does look.
There's not a lot of surgery gone on here, but perhaps it shows its years. I don't know.
He's had his breast done.
But
just to be clear, it does show.
I was coming up the dear old age. I still am coming up the dear old age of 60.
Hopefully,
right. And lots of my friends have, because I was a young lad at school in my year. Yeah. There's a few older. They already reached 60. And they got a discounted season ticket at 60. As I come up to it, now I don't know if someone in Millwall's
having a joke
has seen me coming up there and thought we'll make him pay a bit more. He's a rich man or that. I'm not that rich, but they've upped it to 61. And I believe next season it's going to go to 62.
So you're never going to get there.
And I'm never going to get there for another, I can't work out, 6 years or so.
6 years, that did.
And I thought I was only a year away.
But they've recognised diversity in that, because it's both the same for men and women, isn't it?
Well, that was evidently what I believe it's trying to do. But perhaps I should have. Yeah,
clear, transsexuals are always very welcome.
I was thinking of becoming Pauline at 16 or something, or 60 or something like that. But my grump is that surely the people coming up to it perhaps should get some sort of discount before they get to 65, because I'm chasing that for the next 6-7 years, and I think that the club could have put something in. Just say that when you get to 62, it comes down a little bit or something like that. But I'm going to go the other end of the scale, so that's me grump for me as an old man and whatever.
You've got two grumps.
I've got a backup grump, if you don't mind.
No, go for it, you grumpy old man.
Only because it's season tickets again. They're the other end of the scale, and I don't know how it sort of came about, but you have under 12s, then they go to under 16s, and then it goes under 18s and under 21s, 18 to 21. And there's a small difference between the under 16 to the under 18 to the under 18, 21 in monetary terms. From the under 12 to the under 16, it's £120 odd or something like that. Now, I don't get that. I don't understand why there's such a big jump from kids that are still at an age that they've got to rely on their parents to pay for them to come into the ground, and they make such a big jump look, the £23 under 12 season ticket is fantastic value. I know that, but surely, I mean, even if they put another gradient in for parents, this is, who are spending the money out, perhaps an under 14s, I don't know, which is halfway to there, because it just seems like a huge jump for a kid from the age of 12. Once he gets over that to, the next bracket of £120 seems like, because then it goes up in small, not so big amounts, as small amounts, like, from under 16 to under 18. So for someone who might have a few kids at that sort of age, that's a big jump, in my opinion.
Then he go on.
I do.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. No, Ted, I think
he's got some strength in his
It's
argument.
because I've sat next to Graeme for so long.
True.
It's all coming out.
It's rubbed off on you.
Start crying in a minute, won't he?
I'll get Mover further away.
Yeah, now listen, I am racked off. I am seriously racked off.
Cool.
All right? Now,
it
what's
doesn't
happening?
take much to rack you
No,
off, though, does it?
what's happened is this moving kick-off date times. Yeah?
This is doing my
This
head in,
is doing my head in, all right? Barnsley, 17th of March. Sheffield United, 14th of March. Being brought forward from 3 p.m. to 1 p.m. That means that it's the South Yorkshire Police. Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it? Oh, bloody hell. That means that we have to get up earlier. People have made arrangements to get up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, for Christ's sake, I'm just having my Millwall breakfast in the old cafe about 1 p.m. Now I've got to get up there and I've got to rejig my whole day.
You usually wet the bed, though, don't you? Get up early,
yeah. I'm always up, around that. But the thing about it is, the worst thing is, we've been put out, but then Barnsley start having a go at us. That's why we got to beat them. They say Millwall are causing unrest because they've let their fans know before the official statement there could be a change of kick-off time.
Well, what's wrong with that?
What is wrong with that? What is wrong with the Barnsley idiot? I mean, come on, please, let's have a bit of fairness here. South Yorkshire Police, you should be able to police a game at 3 o'clock in both instances. I don't understand this. We seem to be victimised. Why? Why is being a Millwall fan so terrible? I don't know.
I having said all that, Graeme, I do hope for your sake we don't get in the Premier League, because it could be any sort of time. Past 12 and Sundays, Monday nights, all that.
Yeah, the old media demands will
what?
take over.
That would do my head in. I do love the traditional 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock
on a Saturday.
yeah.
It would, getting in the Premier League would annoy me for that reason.
Yeah.
Monday nights can go away.
Well, of course, Graham's dinner schedule, his food timings, goes all out. He's lost then.
No,
he doesn't know when to eat and when not to.
I'm
That's
discombobulated.
Eamonn, are you a grumpy old man? You got anything to moan about? Or are you quite happy with your experience at the Den?
Well, actually, my experience at the Den is superb. There's no doubt about that. Last weekend, the kind folks at the Den put their money in their pockets in the executive lounge to raise money for my old mate Mark Upperton's Memorial Fund for the St James and St John Hospice in Sussex. Marvellous all of those guys, you've done wonderful. And a particular shout for a little lady who went round with a Millwall plastic merchandise bag. Her name's gone out of my head, but she was one of the main sponsors' wives. Thank you very much. But on the bad side...
Oh, you've got something grumpy to say.
Yeah, I've got something grumpy to say, although I might moderate it as I go. But never mind. Tim Cahill. Tim Cahill. Tim Cahill.
Tim Cahill?
Yeah, who is?
Tim
Cahill. I remember him quite well. He was good.
Pitch.
That's it, all of that. I noticed on Saturday there wasn't too many great whoops when he come on the pitch. There was certain groups of people that did. But I'm just a little bit miffed as to what we're doing with Tim Cahill. What is his impact? Why have we really brought him in? For Tim Cahill's needs? Because it makes me wonder. Wasn't there other players out there that we might have had a better look at and brought in?
Well, is Tim going to get annoyed as well that he's not getting much game time? He's got a World Cup coming up.
Well, the other side of the coin for Tim and his World Cup coming up is obviously his manager in the Socceroos sees more than perhaps we see in the games that he's played, because both Tim and James Meredith have been selected for the preliminary World Cup squad, and they've got a couple of games coming up, one of which is at Fulham, I think, against Colombia.
Well, as long as it's not in Melbourne.
That's right. So they haven't got too far to go, but we might lose those two guys for a bit.
I think you've been a bit of a grumpy old git here, really.
Oh,
all right, okay, because who are you going to leave out of the forward line at the moment to incorporate him in the team? I mean, poor old Lee, there he is, the back heels, magnificent continental back heels at Savill to score and that. And you say, oh, sorry, Tim's got to play next game, you're not being there, mate. What are we going to do about it?
Well, I think we've got to make our voices heard.
I can answer you, Eamonn. Tim Cahill's here to score the winner at Wembley when we're in the playoff final, and that's the main reason
You've
we
changed
signed
your
him.
tune.
No, that's in the playoff semi-final.
You know me, Joe.
Playoff semi-final.
Oh, semi-final, sorry.
Yeah, come on.
The winning goal.
Yeah.
Who fancies a pint?
Oh, now you're talking.
Yeah,
Should we go down the pub?
You know how to curb these grumpy old men, Joe.
I do.
Well, actually, there's one more point.
For God's sake, I'm gasping, Eamonn.
Yeah, and I remembered it. I remembered it dearly. It's not about being grumpy. It's just to say thanks to all you guys who responded to Question of the Week. And I'll briefly say that we got some really good answers in, and I'll draw attention to Neil Turtle, who pointed out to players over the decades. But the one that
is he
wins
a teenage
it through,
mutant?
No, he was a very good guy,
Sorry.
Neil. Come on, I know how you can see these things. But the rundown is interesting because I think we've run this in other places before. But in third place, we had Teddy Sheringham.
Oh,
and in second place, we had the man that leads the Lions from the dugout, Neil Harris. It was Barry Kitchener.
Mate, just to clarify, I don't read anything you put for. What was the question again?
The question is, who was the greatest Millwall player?
Of course it was. Of course it was.
Yes. Did I miss that bit?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Well, there you go. Who was? So those are the results, and I'll just use Ray Crossman's one single sentence. His record proves it.
Yeah.
Era boy, era man, and he still followed the Lions afterwards.
Yeah.
And on that beautiful final note from Eamonn, I think it's time to say goodbye, and we'll be back in a month's time with another No One Likes to Talk in podcast. Ted?
Weather permitting, Joe.
Oh, yeah, I don't think it'll be snowing in April.
The snow's
I
coming
so
back.
not.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Back.
We might all have sunstroke, you know.
Well, let's hope so. Ted, gorgeous to see you.
And you, Joe.
Graeme, I love your miserable
Yeah, I love you too, mate.
And Eamonn, thank you for stepping in and for all the hard work you do, Eamonn, on this show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, well done.
And for not being so miserable. Well done.
Yeah, he's a very, very positive person. Unlike me. Let's get down the pub and up the Lions. We are
Lions.
Smashing it at the moment.
Well and truly up them.
Let's go and beat Brentford. We'll see you soon. Thanks for listening.
How are you, like?